Day 2 Terran tutorial. We're green today. I'm fine with that. Okay, so we're going to start with the capital ships. The first ship is a Liberator. It's a Corvette class capital ship. And it has 2 weapons. When it's in its air-to-air mode right now, it has its 80 range rockets. It's good at taking out things like scouts and stuff. It's in some ways kind of like a bigger Valkyrie with, you know, not a spray attack, but it's just a bigger Valkyrie. In fact, let me get a Valkyrie out here just to get a comparison going. Yes, the capital ships should be larger for scale. Unfortunately, it just isn't practical to do that. Might still scale the Liberator up. The problem is, right now the Liberator is more to scale now with like the battle cruiser and so on. If you look at the bridge here versus the cockpit size here, you can see what I mean by the difference. But if I make the Liberator bigger, if I make all the smaller capital ships bigger, then the battle cruiser is going to have to be the size of the map. So this is one of those awkward scaling issues, but it's meaning Starcraft 2 Hardcore still does depend on some symbolism, but for the most part, when we can get the land units and everything is to scale on land. So anyway, back to the Liberator. So it has an air-to-air mode, its normal mode that it starts off as, and it can go into this, it's basically its air-to-ground mode. I need to explain what these 2 radiuses are. I haven't yet converted the Liberator to just go to air-to-ground mode like a siege tank does. So it still wants to use this target circle like default Starcraft 2. This doesn't mean anything. You can put this circle anywhere, it doesn't matter, and it will go into air-to-ground mode. When it does this, okay, I need to go back to show you that first circle, and the reason why I left it, that first circle is range 20, and the outer circle is the actual range of his cannon. And the reason I left this inner circle is a lot of units have a range of 20 or less. So it's helpful, like say you wanna come up on a photon cannon who has a range of 20, a very common situation. Now granted, you could always just put it right on the very edge, but let's say there's a bunch of other cannons. The reason why this is helpful is because now you can see if you're inside the range of the cannon or not before you set up your mode. So that's the reason why. See, that's like right on the edge. It's cutting it close. The inner circle was left for the purpose of being able to allow you to know what range 20 is, since it is important before you position. So we're going to go into air-to-ground mode. And its weapon is a 100 damage weapon, 1.5 second rate of fire. The weapon itself, it's self-generating. It doesn't actually use ammo. The ammo for the Liberator is its missiles. In fact, let me bring it out here to shoot at. Oh, we already have one. Okay. Just so you can kind of get an idea of the kind of missiles that it shoots. So it shoots these missiles at obviously much faster rate. It will wear down, and they're really well. Always going to hit most of it. The Liberator is kind of fills in the gaps of what it. Oh, wow, no death animation for that. These videos are really just doing a great job, just showing the mod off in all of its crappiness. It just. Still my favorite part. Oh, I need to show you guys something too. If you've been following this video series, I need to show you this so you can see it to believe it. Okay, so my favorite moment so far in making these videos was when I was talking about how the Punisher and the Ultralisk in a battle of a 1 versus 1, the Ultralisk is going to win, and the reason is because the Ultralisk is land only, it's land specific. So, and the Punisher can attack land and air units, and they're also now the same cost, $1250, $250. 1250, 250. But I was saying that because the Punisher attacks land and air, it should not beat an Ultralisk in a one-on-one, and then the Ultralisk loses and the Punisher has like 50 hit points left, and I was like, well then, that was not supposed to happen, and it was just so embarrassing after I just got done saying this thing was supposed to lose. So it was a glitch in the Punisher's damage. It was doing double damage, so that's been fixed. So now you can actually see what's going on between these two. So the Ultralisk wins that fight with about half its health, as should, since it's ground only, and the Punisher dies in a 1 versus 1. So that has been fixed. The Punisher is no longer overpowered like that. Back to the Liberator, though. What was I talking about? Shooting the rockets. Its air attack is it's an air attack that most other units don't have. The Liberator is still kind of a new unit to Starcraft 2 Hardcore. The ground attack, what is it good for? It has range 30, and photon cannons are range 20, so right off the bat, it can strip cannons. Okay, it has 100 damage per shot, so it usually takes, yeah, it'll usually do let me wait for it to get fully charged. It's usually about two cannon shots per cannon. So it does a good job at stripping cannons. It's also really good against Roach for Zerg, because it'll one-shot each Roach every 1.5 seconds for free. So just keeping this in this area, and you can see it's a pretty decent area. It keeps Roach out, because they're just losing 1 Roach every 1.5 seconds. Obviously, it's overwhelmed by overwhelmed by Zerglings, overwhelmed by Hydralisks. Roach, it does well. Brutalisk also does well. The Brutalisk's ability, though, could cause some concern. 250 damage per ability use. Again, a lot of these heavier units, land units, are in trouble. An Ultralisk is obviously in big trouble from a Liberator, because the Ultralisk can't attack back, and the Liberator is just nailing it at 100 damage per attack. So, which means in about 15 seconds an Ultralisk would be dead, right? 1,000 divided by 100 is 10 attacks times 1.5 seconds per attack, so 15 seconds plus, because he's regenerating, so it'd probably be 1 more extra shot, 11 attacks. So in about 16.5 seconds a Liberator would kill an Ultralisk, so he has time pressure, and the fact that the Liberator outruns, why does it not show? Oh, that's right, because he's in his air-to-ground mode. Liberator outruns the Ultralisk, so the Liberator is a pretty decent counter to an Ultralisk. The cost comparison to an Ultralisk, so it does cost a little bit more mineral and twice as much gas as an Ultralisk, but again, it does good against certain kind of land units like this. Let's see, anything else for Zerg that's noteworthy? It's obviously Scourge bait. A Liberator in air-to-ground mode is completely defensive. Even in air-to-air mode, it is easily countered by Scourge, because its attack is long range, its missiles, it focuses on 1 air unit at a time from far away. It's not good at handling a mob of Scourge coming right at it. Also, the Scourge are faster than the Liberator. Here we are here, move speed 10 and move speed 4. So a group of Scourge are basically death for a Liberator. So Liberators are not really good just on their own. They're kind of a support unit. They're meant to have other lane units of their own underneath them, Marines, whatever. Just something else to help screen, like Scourge and other stuff that it doesn't do well. It's meant to coordinate with like, say for example, Marines who can't do well against Roach. Well, it does well against Roach. So, but on its own, it doesn't do well. Unless you just, I mean, there are times when it's okay and it'll be alright. Another thing, keep in mind, is all capital ships for Terran units are always visible. Buildings that are lifted off and capital ships are always visible to all players. So right now, the AI that's over here can see this Liberator. So always being visible means you can't be sneaky with it, and they have the advantage of knowing where to send the Scourge to, and he has the disadvantage of doesn't know the Scourge are coming. So yeah, Scourge are a good counter. Spore Crawler is also a good counter, and the reason is because, let's get another one built here. It outranges it, and Spore Crawler is meant for killing bigger, slower capital ships. And also the Liberator has to stop and go into a stationary mode in order to attack the ground unit to begin with, which is perfect for a Spore Crawler because it's a still target. Now yes, the Spore Crawler does have 200 hit points. Let's do the math, quick math on this. Spore Crawler is the cost of 250 mineral, 100 gas, and the Liberator was 1500 mineral. And so 6 Spore Crawlers basically for the price of 1 Liberator. I would put my money on the Spore Crawlers every time. They'll one-shot it basically. Look at the damage of a Spore Crawler, 230. That's without upgrades. You can upgrade defense structures from like evolution chambers and so on. And I believe it's plus 20 per upgrade, so it can go 230, 250, 270. But 230 as a default damage, about a quarter of his health. It would only take 5 Spore Crawler hits to down a Liberator. Okay, a Liberator does only take two hits, but range 80. What I'm getting at is the Liberator can't really go near Spore Crawlers, so Spore Crawler is a good defense. Seeker Nests actually still do okay against them, even though they're meant more for smaller aircraft, and they're not really meant for capital ships. Seeker Nests still do okay. The range is a little bit more than the Liberator's range, but it's, how do I put this? It's still going to get countered by a Liberator that just comes into the area, but they do some damage, I guess what I'm trying to say. They're not totally helpless, but a Spore Crawler is obviously better. Scourge and Spore Crawler and Corruptors are, I would just go with Scourge. I mean, sure, Corruptors are okay, but I would go with Scourge. The Corruptors, because it gets into a shootout then with the Liberator in its air mode. And the missiles, as you saw, are pretty good at just kind of focusing in on one at a time. So you'd have to have like half a dozen Corruptors for us to be talking about, you know, Corruptors doing well against them. So, and not a lot of people make half a dozen Corruptors. So, as far as like a Broodlord, it would take a Liberator a while at 60 damage per attack, almost every couple seconds. It would take a lot of time. You know what, I'm almost willing to, let's do a little 1v1 here. Okay, let's make Broodlord. Oh, I don't know the Lord of Broodlord. Go away, you. Okay. We're gonna make him into a Broodlord. 1,000 hit points. And we're going to have them attack each other. And to be fair, see, Broodlords are also considered a capital ship, and they are also always visible. So I want to put him all the way back out here, and the reason is because if the Broodlord is going to attack the Liberator, it's only fair that the Liberator uses its range of 80, while the Broodlord has a range of 50 to launch its Broodling. So we're going to get this going here. I'm going to attack. Oops. I had my Ultra list selected. So they're going to start to attack each other. I mean, there's damage in these guys. I have a feeling that yeah. Now, if you upgrade the Broodlings, Lord, you're done. If you upgrade air attack and put them upgrade. Okay, right here we're discovering that the Liberator does very well because the Broodlings. That's a very good counter right there. Only lost 40 hit points to kill a Broodlord, so now you know. Valkyries normally do it well against most all air, but now this we see now is even better. It's funny, as I'm doing this tutorial, I'm actually learning things myself about some of the newer units that I haven't battle tested yet, so this is just as educational for me as it is for you. So the Liberator is a very good choice versus a Broodlord. Very good choice. I'm almost curious now to... this Spindle is another new unit for the Zerg. Well, not another. Broodlord's been around for a while. Now, it better not be giant. Dang it, I'm not even going to test this. This is not supposed to be this big. And I don't know why on the test map it's this big. This is ridiculous. This just dwarfs the Ultralisk, like, okay. Anyway, I'm kind of curious to see though, let's go heal him. I'm kind of curious to see what kind of, because it has 6 armor and its attacks damage 6, but it's Vile Spew, Air and Ground. I'm just curious to see, because I've never tested these units before. I'm curious to see how Liberator does against the Spindle. And I'm just going to have to ignore the monstrous size. Get moving, you. Alright. And they're now going to attack. Just juke. Okay, so the Spindle and the Broodlord are both countered well, I would say, by the Liberator. We're just going to leave it at that. Let's see here. I need to make a note of something because... the AI right now doesn't make Liberators because it wouldn't know how to use the Erdogan Mode well. I'll have to work on that. It would be really cool if I can get the AI to know really good times to go to ground mode, to stay in air mode. I would like it to be able to build Liberators just to counter Broodlords. So every now and then in games against players, they'll like to make lots of Broodlords. The AI usually doesn't make more than one Broodlord. It's kind of uncommon. But humans love to make Broodlords. And so you just saw with its air-to-air mode, it does well against Broodlords. The Broodlord's attack is helpless against them, and the Liberator does wear them down from a distance, and also because the Broodlord is always visible. So I think we're good with Zerg. I don't think there's really anything else worth mentioning here. So we're done with Zerg versus Liberator. Let's go to Terran. Oh, that's right, I always got to be making money. Get making money. There we go. Blizzard's always got to have you busy making money. Even in a tutorial video on a test map, low income is death. Isn't that something? Blizzard, I guess, they just do not like poverty. Okay, Terrans, Stingers. Actually, well, here's the deal about Stingers. That would be, I need to battle test this someday. Someday. Why not do it now, right? Why not do it now? What I want to see here is the speed normal? Okay, good. He just looks like he's moving slow. First of all, let's see. 25 gas, and a Liberator is 500 gas. Okay. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. 20 Stingers just in gas alone. and then we're gonna say about just 40 stingers. This is kind of stupid. I'm curious what. And now let's say that the stingers are range upgraded, right? Because he's got 30 range. So I'm going to put him in range of the enemy stingers when I make them. Are all my units not going to hurt this? Okay. I'm going to make 40. Oh wait, did I probably haven't even added in stingers on this command. Dang it. We'll find out, I guess. Here we go, let's get this one out here. I really don't want to have to attack each stinger. Well, let's just do the math on this. Okay, so each stinger is doing 60 damage each times 40, so it's 2,400 of damage in one shot. So yes. Oh, it did make him. Oh, we can watch the Liberator die. Okay, watch this. Think about how much damage that thing is doing. Now, I want him to dodge the first round before I do this, and I'm also going to give him a fair chance to be able to shoot. Oh, he got one shot. So you have just witnessed the power of Stingers versus a Liberator. They do well per cost. Stingers are just amazing units against all large armored targets. They just are. They're everything a Marine needed. Everything a Marine can't do, it's like the Stinger can do, almost. Except for Zergling swarms. Let's get another Liberator out here. Liberator Mark II. Since that one's wrecked. We should probably kill them. Because they're probably going to mess up our plans. Anyway, all the other Terran units are just not going to do anything to a Liberator. The Reaper isn't going to pierce the... except for Ghost. Forgot about Tactical Nuke for the Ghost. So, just let me do a quick test on this so you can see the damage yourself. Let's get some nukes made. Alright, so he's going to fire his one Tactical Nuke. Now the Liberator can always fly out. The problem is, you see how the dot isn't really visible anymore? So we don't know what that looks like. I guess it would be smart to immediately move. So she does so really damage to the Liberator. Well, it's all units. Yeah, 1,000 points of damage to structures. So a Ghost is actually a pretty good. It's really good. You cost 100 gas to make the Ghost, and then you cost another 150 gas to make the missile to bring him 3/4 down. But the Liberator is still 500 gas. The Ghost is a really good counter. Stingers are a good counter. Let's go to the tank and mech group here. A SAM. Guys, repair him fast. I don't have to make another one. Let's see how much a SAM's rockets do against the Liberator. Liberator's, like I said, it's one of the newer units that was added. I never really did a lot of testing with it. So I really don't. And the SAM is also a new unit too. So these are kind of new territory for me. A lot of the base units I know exactly how well they're going to do. But these units, not so much. Is it already going to rain again? Yep, it's raining again. It's always raining on these tutorials. I want to see how much damage one attack does to a Liberator. Oh, see? They were about to mess up my plans again. I want to see how much one... Oh, wow. That's not right, though. Okay, something is wrong with these missiles. I have a feeling that a SAM might be overpowered, because that's... Note to self. There's another thing I gotta look into now. That just did 250. The SAM is getting nerfed. it did 200 and basically 25 points of damage for its volley. Why even make a wolf or any other anti-capital ship weapon when these anti-light missiles, they're meant more for needleisks, are damaging him? So this is going to get a nerf. So I'm not even going to continue testing this. It's going to get a nerf. It's not set up to be an anti-capital ground-to-air unit. It's meant to be an anti-light ground-to-air unit. So that's going to change. Same with the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie is using the same damage, so it's also going to be messing this up right now. The Valkyrie is not intended to do well against the Liberator. The Liberator is intended to counter the Valkyrie, because the way its deck is versus the Valkyrie's non-armor piercing attack versus the Liberator. So I'm going to have to look into both the SAM and the Valkyrie's damage against armor, and so on. Now, the Torpedo Frigate is actually not there yet. I'm sorry. Let me finish up with the rest. The Liberator is a tank killer. It's 100 damage, will one-shot tanks. So there's also that. So if you put the Liberator right in mode of an area full of tanks, it's just going to chew through each tank 1.5 seconds at a time, which is really good. Let's see here. In terms of the mechs, a wolf would be a threat to it because of his missile ability that does 300 damage at range 50. Meaning the wolf's missile ability, it outranges it, and it does, and he can do 2 of those before he has to reload. So the wolf can do 600 points of damage to a Liberator. The wolf only costs 250 mineral, 75 gas, and the Liberator is obviously much more valuable here at 1500, 500. So the wolf is actually a good counter against the Liberator. Stinger would probably still be better, but then again the wolf offers more range, so there's that safety of range. As for a Punisher, my money would be on the Liberator. It has 1,000 hit points and it's doing 100 damage every 6 seconds. But let's test this. Sure, let's test it. I want to see for sure how well this is going to do. I really need to kill those fools out there. Can Thor? Can you? And oh, all right, I'll wait. I'm patient person. All right. So he's gonna go. I'm going to put him into mode, and then you get off the creep. The creep is messing up the. He's gonna get shot by those stupid. Oh, Ultralisk. I know these stingers are going to hurt you a lot, but let's see if you can't smash them first. I have a feeling that happened. We did the math on that. That's 2,400 damage. I mean, stingers do a lot of damage and they're very efficient, but they're also very easy to kill in that tiny little cluster. If I made a catapult, I'll just make it in catapult and get it over with here. You'll see what I'm talking about. How stingers are kind of like the scouts of ground in that they're very deadly, but they're also very easy to kill. All of you are dead. That's great. Man, the stingers in groups are really dangerous. To big things like this. Okay. So the Liberator's here. He's in air-to-ground mode. Punisher, get off the creep so it doesn't affect your speed. I was really concerned about. And I'm gonna have him attack. Yeah, the Liberator's gonna win. I'm just curious to see how much damage the Punisher can do before. I mean, just right off the bat, the Liberator has more hit points. Alright, so he's left at 60% basically health. So, a Punisher obviously can do some damage, but these results were kind of expected. Now, if you look at the cost, they're about the same. 1,500, 500, and the Punisher is 1,250, 250. So yeah, the Punisher is, this is kind of a break, almost a break even with a slight edge to the Liberator. There you go, and be healed. As for any of the other mechs, the Thor has the same missile ability as the Wolf, which is a 300 damage attack from far away. So there is that to be considered. The Thor, you know what? I actually want to run now. The cost of a Thor is like double. Here's it is 3,500, and the Liberator is 1,500. So I always hate doing one-on-one tests with units that the cost is significantly different. I'm okay with doing one-on-one tests for units that are very close in cost, you know. But because in this, there should be 1.5 Liberators versus 1 Thor. What do you think? So now I'm going to have these guys attack. Is that free money? Why are it free money, guys? Free money. It's just a terrible, terrible habit of mine. I'm just instantly grabbing. Why are you being... Oh, yeah. The circle tells you he wants to go to the center of the circle. This whole thing right now is kind of set up. So I'm going to have you attack him and you attack the Thor. And that'd be scary. I'm sorry to see that Thor come at you like that. Like, I don't care if you're... Thor... Thor is almost dead. So you could say, and that's fair. Well, but see that, oh, I didn't even use the missile ability. So you just saw the results of just the attack versus attack. With the missile ability, the Thor, like I said, it can do 300 damage at range 50. So 3, 6, 9. I mean, just with its missiles alone, it can do a lot of damage to the Liberator. So what we're seeing here is that the Thor versus Liberator dynamic is very dependent on micromanagement and who gets to who first. The Liberator has the burden of it's pressured to have to get within range, which can also be a disadvantage because that means other units are probably around the Thor, like 40 stingers, that keep him from getting too close to the Thor. So in just a 1v1, you just saw the results. So yeah. So that's the mech menu, and let's go to the other aircraft. Turns out Vikings are going to counter Liberators. Well, they're not going. It's not going to be a hard counter. You can make 3 Vikings. You know what? I want to test this. Now I know the other air units aren't going to do so well for cost because the missiles don't do much damage for second. You need 3. Take even longer. Okay. Dead. So let's look at the costs here. So yeah, it is a slight count. The Viking is a slight counter to the Liberator. The Viking is doing 500 mineral, 150 gas, and the Liberator is about 3 times the cost of a Viking. So, and you just saw how you're left with 33% of your force. So Viking is actually, and that's without shooting a movie. If you micro the Vikings, you can probably get better results than 33%. So now you just saw that. That is one way of handling a Liberator. If you have Vikings, you can go against them, but you'll probably want to shoot and move to get better results. Okay, so as for these other units, I don't even want to test them. I already know they're going to die. They have less hit points than a Viking. Their damage does less damage than a Viking. So I don't. They're dead. I mean, the Liberator is going to one-shot 60 damage. Yeah, it's going to one-shot a Falcon, which has 50 hit points. It's going to one-shot a Banshee, has 40 hit points. So it's going to one-shot these units, and their damage isn't going to do as much as a Viking, and they almost cost as much as a Viking. So I'm not going to go there. The Valkyrie, like I said earlier, it's going to be until I fix the salvo attack of the SAM, which the Valkyrie is also using. It's going to be doing too much damage, more damage than it should to a capital ship. So I have to fix that after this video. Bomber, so that doesn't make any difference. A torpedo frigate will counter a torpedo frigate. It's going to be the next unit I talk about anyway, so I guess it's a good hedgeway into that. A torpedo frigate is an anti-capital ship capital ship, and that's all it basically does. It does also take out large structures. The torpedo frigate is symbolic for an attack submarine that torpedoes other capital ships and can also launch tactical missiles at like structures. Even though this is sci-fi in space, somehow I was able to get the torpedo frigate to be very, very much like the role of an attack submarine. In fact, let me get one out here just so it's not a little button for you to see. The torpedo frigate is also a capital ship that can float, just like a submarine can submerge and be stealthy. So it is the only capital ship that can float on its own. And its salvo, look at this right here, 250 damage per torpedo, and it fires 12 of them. Let me just show you what it does, so you can see. Actually, I need. Well, I'll use the attack when I'm doing the rundown on the torpedo frigate. The torpedo frigate, yes, does counter the Liberator, and for so many reasons. Just one salvo will take out, even half the salvo will take out the Liberator. You can miss with half of them and still kill it. It's also cloaked in the Liberator. It's just not going to do that much to it. So there is that. A destroyer. A destroyer is really meant for hitting the ground with cannons, and it does have air-to-air ability. And let me show you what I mean by that. It also has the option to either upgrade. It has an upgrade choice to either be double the ammo capacity. Right now it has 1,000 ammo. To double the ammo capacity, or to increase the air-to-air range by 20. I usually do the air-to-air range versus Zerg for overlord hunting without having to be so close to danger. So, for example, the air-to-air range right now is 32, and I'm just going to upgrade the range for this one. Let's get in. You know what? I bet you. Right now the upgrade is still trigger based, so I don't think it's going to work until...
Upgrade complete.
Did it work?
Your forces are under attack.
Oh, brother. Anyway, I just like I'm doing these videos and nothing works. It just can't win. Alright. Why are you damaged? It sounds like something that females say when men talk about how they don't want to be in a relationship anymore. Women will be like, who hurt you? That's their classic, almost shame tactic. I need a different one here. Well, no, I don't. I'm just gonna demonstrate. No, I wanted to do one of you know these two. Yes, I do. I need a different one. Or you know what? Maybe I'll leave one handheld since that'll be a little more accurate since it's a fraction. Let's get another Liberator out. 500 versus 2750. So you could get almost two liberators from the destroyers. I'm kind of curious, who was shooting at you? Seriously, that who did? Oh, my bad. AI over here. Yeah, they can only see the capital ships. That makes sense. Alright, so that means... Oh, great. I'm not going to be able to... Let's back this up as far as we can. Two liberators firing. Okay, so we're going to tell the destroyer to start. Let's see. Terran one first. You guys start taking this, even though they're already in range. These are that range upgrade though makes a big difference. Without that, it's not displaying the range here. That's why I thought it was broken. That's not range 32. That's about 52 right there. I believe it puts his range to 50 for air to air. It's plus 18, something like that. That range upgrade makes a big difference in this kind of a situation. He'd probably have closer to about 1200 or 1000 health maybe if he had to keep going, and then start shooting like right around here. Because he had two of them firing at him that whole time. So, Destroyer versus Liberator, it looks like the Destroyer does okay against it, for cost even too. But again, it's all situational. He has to rotate around to get line of fire, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things to that. But then just a 1.5 versus 1, Destroyer. Where's a missile cruiser? This is almost not even applicable. The missile cruiser is basically an unlimited range unit. It's not about dueling. It's more of a siege capacity. So I don't even want to fidget with dueling a Liberator versus a missile cruiser. Also, a missile cruiser can launch tactical nukes at ground or air targets. So if he wants to, he can just get the Liberator off the map. For 600 gas, I believe, 300 gas per missile, and it would take. Let me run that test real quick, just to see how much gas. I'm sorry, how much damage he's going to do to the Liberator. The missile cruiser is a higher orbit than the other capitals, and larger scale than an actual cruiser. His attack, as you can see here, he's got a bunch of different missiles. He does have his his Wraith type missiles right here, range 80. He does his salvo. If it's a missile, he shoots it basically. He's got all kinds of missiles. He's got a missile turret missile. He's got lines of torpedoes from like a Viking. But here's what I'm talking about right here: the tactical nuke. 750 damage. I just want to double check this to make sure. We're gonna fire a tactical Liberator, and I want to see what it does here. So as the attack nuke is an unlimited range ability, the missile can be shot down. So you see what I mean? Why the missile cruiser, it's not even applicable in terms of like dueling or fighting, because it's a siege unit, and it's costing him 600 gas to bring down the 500 gas, 1500 mineral Liberator. So that is a decent counter, all that mineral loss for the Liberator. But again, the missile can be shot down. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with that. For the most part, I'd say that a missile cruiser does well against the Liberator. But again, it's also worth more, almost twice as much. Look at that, twice the gas cost. That gas isn't cheap. So there is that. Liberators, a pack of Liberators versus a battle cruiser. Now this is interesting. I would put my money on the battle cruiser because he has a Yamato cannon. Period. For a battle cruiser. Now for other smaller classes that have just guns, the Liberator could skirmish them because the what you call, like, the Minotaur class, the Mirai class, the other classes, the smaller classes of battlecruisers, they don't have Yamato. Yamato is a game changer. Yamato is a very strong anti-capital ability. It will do 5,000 damage to a single target. So the battlecruiser can just, and since all capital ships are always visible, the battlecruiser sees the Liberator sees the battlecruiser. The Liberator has to do what? Get up to range 80 to start using its little rockets here on the battlecruiser, which won't do anything. It'll just tickle him, especially if the battlecruiser has armor upgrades, because of how much they get, like plus 10 armor per upgrade. So after like level 2 armor on a battlecruiser, a Liberator won't even do damage to it. It's a Corvette that's meant for taking out like other fighters and smaller scale stuff. It's not meant for battling against the battlecruiser. So even with just weapons alone, the Liberator, it's just not going to be as effective against the battlecruiser. The Yamato cannon, like I said, is a direct counter to the Liberator. So there's that. But for battlecruisers that don't have what you call a Yamato cannon, I could see how a Liberator could wear them down. Keep in mind, every attack does cost gas for the Liberator, but I can see how it could wear them down. And when you look at the cost difference between, you can get 3 Liberators basically for a Minotaur. 3, maybe 4 if you want to count that mental difference. 450, yeah, so maybe 4 Liberators for the price of 1 Minotaur. Yeah, I would say 4 Liberators would be enough to punk a smaller battlecruiser. I could see that. So if you want to use it for that, I guess you can do that too. So that is You Go Be Healed. All you guys. So that is Terran versus Terran with the Liberator. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm missing out. Missile turrets do well against Liberators. Their cost and rockets are worthwhile, and most of the time the rockets will hit. Also, missile turrets have a range of, in fact, let me get one out here. They have a range of 100 as opposed to the 30 range of his air to ground. There it is, range 100, and it's doing 75 damage. I believe, let me test this out. You get away from healing. You're still in the minimum range. There we go. 870. Okay, so it does 130 damage to a Liberator. So yeah, it is doing 70 times 2, actually. So it's doing 140 damage. Missile turrets are just rough against most stuff. Most big air stuff, especially. So, missile turrets are a pretty good defense against Liberators. I'm going to just put it that way. Similar scale as the Spore Crawler. So, that is one other option. Black turrets are going to be pretty useless. It's 6 armor, and it outranges a flak turret. So, a Liberator will counter a flak turret. Put it that way. I did forget to mention the Canon Tower, which is an anti-capital defense structure. The Canon Tower is a counter and a defensive. It's a defensive option versus the Liberator, because the Canon Tower. Let's go build one now. Are you going to build one there? Okay. Why is everybody around here like hurting? So the Canon Tower costs about as much as the Liberator. Let me show you the cost here. 1750, 500, and the Liberator is 1500, 500. So it does cost a little bit more than the Liberator, but it has 100 range and does 440 damage per attack every 15 seconds. So it can kill a Liberator in 45 seconds. The Liberator wouldn't even be able to get to, and it has 1,000 hit points to it. So the Liberator would have to do at least 10 attacks to kill the cannon tower. But the cannon tower is going to get at least one, probably two shots off. The Liberator is going to have about 200 health by the time it finally gets into range to start doing damage, and it'll be dead by the third shot. So, what I'm getting at is that the cannon tower is pretty good at keeping most capitals out, and the Liberator is definitely one of them. So that is that. For Protoss now, Protoss versus the Liberator. Let's just start with our gateway. Nope. All this stuff is toast. Liberator can strip a High Templar out. Archers don't do enough damage. All these guys are basically ground only. You always gotta wonder if there's some weird, like, okay, so Vindicators. See, the Liberator doesn't do any splash damage. Its beam just hits one target at a time. 100 damage every 1.5 seconds, but it does no splash. So you'd always have to wonder about strange things that you wouldn't think would be a counter, like 100 Vindicators, for example. You know what? I almost want to try this, but it's hard to try because I'd have to. What I'm getting at here is, let me make some Vindicators so you can see what I'm talking about. Vindicators are one of those units that just continually surprise you. Like, you see an Ultralist charging at them, and you're like, oh man, those little guys are about to get squished. And then like 100 lightning beams just all hit it and explode the Ultralisk, and you're just like, what happened there? Okay, so this is a Vindicator, and he shoots his little lightning beam, and as you can see, it's 5 every 0.15, so he's got a pretty high damage per second. It also has area of effect. Range 3 can attack air units. Now, I believe, let me go see if he can get through the Liberator's armor, because if he can get through the Liberator's armor, I can't remember if the Vindicator, Liberator, all these Terminator, Obliterator, Vindicator. I don't have a Terminator in this mod yet. Maybe I need one. Oh, that'll be for the robot, right? Robot Terrans. Okay. Let's see if you do damage. Nope, no you don't. Okay, so we know now that these poor little Vindicators shooting their lightning guns on the ground would get screwed. I'm not saying they couldn't chip the paint off of it, but they're not going to do anything. So from the gateway, Hunter? No, because it's going to one-shot each Hunter. Yeah, let's say you made 20 Hunters. You don't almost want to do that right here. Again, that's hard because they've got shorter range. And they're only going to be doing 4 damage per attack. This is worth testing sometime, actually, just out of curiosity. You would make 10 Hunters for the same gas as a Liberator, and obviously a lot more mineral. You're looking at, I think 20 was probably a good estimate for the overall kind of cost equivalent. 20 Hunters versus a Liberator. I mean, yeah, I can see them doing something. They're going to lose a lot of guys because they're going to lose one every 1.5 seconds, or 1 point. Yeah, it's 1.5 seconds. It's not a good counter, so I'm just going to leave it at that. You might be able to do something with them. Go ahead and try if you want. Probably not a good idea. It's not what hunters are meant for, you know. So anyway, Dragoon. Okay, now this is interesting because the Liberator one-shots. Does it one-shot? No, I think it takes 2 because of its shields. That's right. 60, 50. And then the Liberator does 100 damage. So, actually, I want to see just how much one Dragoon. Wait. How many Dragoons? Okay, actually, you know what? You go back into. I'm going to do a little battle test here because I am curious to see. It seems like it'd be kind of an even fight, believe it or not. Because the Liberators kill Dragoons fast, but the Dragoons, they do a lot of damage per shot fast. So if the 1500, 500, and a Dragoon is 250, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Okay, so we're looking at maybe 8 Dragoons would be equivalent. 6, 7, 8. we're going to have them go over here. We're going to have you set up in mode. Okay, you're already in range, so I'm going to have them start out here. Now, I'm not... Should I range upgrade them or not? This is actually a reason why you would or wouldn't range upgrade something. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Can somebody kill some of this? Oh no, I would wreck my Dragoons here. I want to give them times. Money! Yay, money. Look at the math on this. 50 damage times 8. Okay. So, they're going to do a lot of damage per volley, but let's see here. Should I range upgrade them though? That's the thing. The range upgrade will help them a lot. The question is how much. I'm kind of curious to see how much they do. Oh, you know what? Why not both, right? I'm gonna see how well they do without range upgrade, and then how well they do with range upgrade. And I'm gonna slow this down so I can get the behavior better. Yep. So you have two of your 8 left without a range upgrade. And that, do you have all your... No, you don't. Okay, good. I'll use you guys in the next group. I need one more. And we're going to make another Liberator here. I don't have any spare ones sitting in there. I'm going to range upgrade them. I'm going to do range, even though I usually use this one. Let's just say that they won't range because they know this guy loves to make Liberators. I'll have you guys in a circle here. Let's see if we get the range yet.
Upgrade complete.
Okay. Go into Erdogan Mode. Let's slow this back down again. Let's have you attack you, and then you. Get these queued up here. That 20 should make a difference. Okay, it leaves you with 3. But you can see how a Dragoon, and like I said, they're about similar cost. So Dragoon does okay against the Liberator. Keep in mind the Dragoons don't have the setup time too. So if they catch a Liberator already in range, they get free shots. This was kind of the best case scenario for a Liberator. So there is that also to be considered. So there is that. So I'd say a Dragoon does decent. An Immortal will definitely do. Will definitely counter a Liberator. Why? Because the first 10 attacks, it's only going to do 10 damage. Meanwhile, the Immortal has guns that have a higher damage per second than a Dragoon. Now, I know a Dragoon cost. You can get twice as many Dragoons as you can Immortals. I really don't feel like wasting the time to battle test that one. I'm telling you straight. At the very least, they will do as well as a Dragoon. Worst case scenario, but I'm just telling you, they have a higher damage per second, and they have that hardened shield, so that makes the Liberators 100 damage only do 10 damage. Think about that. Alright, it killed a Dragoon every 2 shots, but for this, it would take 10 just to get through the shields, and then the 11th for the actual health. So The Immortal is just going to do better. Let's see, what else do we have here versus the Liberator. Don't know why, but nope, wrong one. Why I have to have a Liberator out here visible while I'm comparing it to some of the other units here. Colossus doesn't attack air units, so Liberator is going to be a counter for a Colossus, because whether it's air-to-ground mode or air-to-air mode, it will still be damaging the Colossus, and the Colossus can't do anything to the Liberator. The Reaver is going to be countered by the Liberator. Also, the Liberator can pluck them right out of an expansion or base outside of photon cannon range, so the Liberator is useful at killing Reavers. In its air-to-air mode, the Liberator is also able to take down a Warp Prism. What is it, in 1 to 2 attacks? Actually, I think it's 1 attack because it's doing 60 damage. Let's get the stats on the Warp Prism. 2 attacks, 60 for the shields, and then the second attack will kill the health. So, 2 Liberator attacks will also kill prisms, so pretty good at keeping prisms and drops out of an area. Anything else? Not really worth mentioning here. Let's see here. Now let's go to the Stargate. I also mentioned that the Liberator does counter the cannons, so there is that. It outranges the photon and definitely outranges the prisma, and it takes 2 shots just to kill 1 cannon for either of these 2. Let's look at air units. The Scout is going to get killed in 2 missile attacks, I believe. Let's look at the stats to be sure. 70 total. Yeah, it's doing 60. So yeah, for a Scout, it's going to actually take 2 hits. It'll be left at critical health after the first attack, which is going to cause it to slow down, and the second attack is going to be more likely to hit. So Scouts are going to get hit pretty hard by Liberators, and even though their missile would be good. Here's the thing, this is about vision though, because the Scouts aren't seen and the Liberator is always seen. So I've been on, in fact just earlier this week I decided to just play mostly Liberators against Protoss, and they went like 5 Scouts, and it was, man, I was dying. They were just killing this Liberator because they can always see me, but I can't always see them. Now keep in mind, I did kill a lot of them, so there's no telling. And I mean, I would lose a couple Liberators, but I killed a lot of them. I'd set up point defense drones when I'd keep them at the base to just waste all the missile attacks. So I'm not saying that a Scout is helpless. I mean, Scouts can definitely cause enough damage over time to a Liberator. But a Scout is not a counter to a Liberator. If anything, it's the other way around. Phoenix. Now, here's the interesting thing about Phoenix. If you made a bunch of Phoenix... Now, Phoenix are going to get 1 shot. See, 60. 30 health, 30 hit points, no armor. Each attack is going to kill 1 Phoenix per attack. So that is a thing. But if you made like 6 to 8 or however many of them, because they're cheap comparison, yeah. You could do a lot of this. The problem with the Liberator is that it has to face its target. So if you're doing this, and you're doing the shoot and move, and shoot and move, and shoot and move, if you're doing that, the Phoenix's attack is 10 damage, but it goes through armor. So that's a solid 10 damage every single attack. And its weapon speed, look at that. It's almost 2 attacks per second. So you can imagine with half a dozen of them, how quickly that would add up. And so if you can work a Liberator with Phoenix, if you micro it right. Now, if you just park right out in front of him and just shoot at him from just like this, head to head, and you just let him shoot missiles at each one of them, that's the worst case scenario for the Phoenix. The Liberator may actually live, but that's not how Phoenixes are meant to be used, and so I have a feeling if you made enough Phoenix and you microed them, you can counter the Liberator, so you can actually work for the value of the Phoenix. A Corsair simply doesn't, it only does, was it 4 or 5 damage, something like that? Damage 5, yeah. So, and his armor is 6, so he's not even going to do any damage to the Liberator. He's an the Corsair is an anti-light unit, so he's not threatened by Corsairs. The Warbird is a new unit. It's kind of like a Protoss battlecruiser, Minotaur class battlecruiser. it does shoot a whole bunch of photons. I need to say that. So I'm going to say that the Warbird would definitely win against like 2 Liberators. The Warbird fires like, it's basically the equivalent of having at least 6 Dragoons, but up in the air. And you just saw how well 8 Dragoons do against the Liberator, but this is like having 6 Dragoons and 2 Immortals all in one unit with more health. And his air-to-air attack doesn't do nearly as much damage per second as his air-to-ground attack. So a Warbird is a threat to Liberators. Also, his shields regenerate at a fairly decent rate, so the Liberator's air-to-air attack is kind of negated by time. So there is that. The Arbiter has a missile slowing field that is basically going to allow it to just always dodge the missiles of the Liberator. Actually, an Arbiter would probably win in a fight just because of that. If you microed the Arbiter, it'd probably win in a fight. I know that sounds sad, but it has a photon cannon like a Dragoon does, 1 photon cannon, but that's all you would need because his missiles won't be able to hit the Arbiter, who has this, it's a time distortion field. It causes missiles to slow down, and so at the very least you can dodge them, but at the very most you can actually give prism cannons plenty of time to shoot down every single missile. So the Arbiter is actually a threat, and just one-on-one threat to a Liberator because of that. So that is Protoss. That is the Liberator. It's a new unit. I don't believe it's going to get any kind of big changes. It does a lot of stuff that the other capital ships don't do. I like where it's at right now, so yeah. The next capital ship, holy moly, an hour just for the Liberator. Alright, I need to step this up here. Well, to be fair, I did talk about some of the other units while I was talking about it, so. The Torpedo Frigate we've already, I've already talked a little bit about. Now that I don't need the Liberator anymore, it's going to be a big target. So, the Torpedo Frigate is like a submarine, like I said earlier. It's good at taking out other capital ships quickly, and it's good at taking out important structures like a strategic nuclear silo, a Stargate, something like that. Symbolic for a tactical strike that a nuclear submarine could do. It cloaks, like I said earlier, it cloaks, which is unique for capital ships. It allows you to get very unexpected angles for its torpedo attack. And yeah, it attacks while it's cloaked, so that is dangerous. Let me give a demonstration of its attack right here on the Torpedo Frigate. So it fires these torpedoes. Oh, this guy. It does 2,000 damage, I believe. Yeah, 250 times 12. 2,000 damage per attack every 20 seconds. And the attack does cost 150 gas. I do need to mention that. It's not just free. All those torpedoes are expensive. The fact that it cloaks and it can just take out a capital ship like that, basically it's a counter to all the other capital ships. Let me put it that way. Your only the only chance you would have is if you comm scanned it and you moded it with a battlecruiser. But you would have to know where it is. You'd have to have a battlecruiser ready with energy ready, and it takes the battlecruiser sometimes a long time to have to face it the right angle. And you know, if he sees the comm scan, he can just leave the comm scan detection range most likely before the battlecruiser is even able to face it and shoot at it. So the Torpedo Frigate is a very, very good anti-capital ship. I know I'm talking about Terran versus Terran right now. I'm going to just continue since I'm already on this beat, and then I'll go to Zerg later. He counters all of the capital ships, basically, per cost. That's all you need to know. Yeah, that's all you need to know. Let's see here. As for ground units, his torpedo attack does do a lot of radius damage, like within about that much radius. So you could kill a cluster of stingers if you wanted to use the gas on it, but for the most part, the Torpedo Frigate is it's unaffected by infantry, and infantry are unaffected by it. So it's kind of the same relationship as infantry to an attack submarine. They don't really have anything to do with each other. They're in two completely different worlds. Now, however, tanks are affected by the Torpedo Frigate. If he wants to spend 150 gas to kill your tank, which is 125 gas, 400 mineral, he can, if you don't have any anti-missile around. Now, these torpedoes do not turn fast, so they'll miss a moving target easily. So, if he's shooting at just a battle tank, that's risky, unless he's doing it point blank. If he's shooting at it from across the map, that's usually a waste of gas, because the torpedoes are slow and they turn slow. There's a good chance that battle tank will probably start moving after the torpedo frigate is fired, and the torpedoes will miss. However, if it's just sitting there and been stationary for a long time, sometimes like a cluster of ballista are known to do, they could all die. So it's just dependent on how much the unit is moving. Same situation with mechs. A Thor is countered by a torpedo frigate because it is big and it is slow, and it does not move fast enough or turn fast enough to actually outturn the torpedoes, which is, like I said, the torpedo frigate takes out large stuff very well. The fusion core is heavily threatened by a torpedo frigate. He launches his torpedoes at this thing, and if you don't have enough anti-missile in the area, that thing is going to be dead. It has 2,000 hit points, which is the sweet amount. And yes, it does have 1 armor, so it'll leave it at 1, but the fire from the explosion will end up melting it and killing the fusion core. So fusion cores are in jeopardy of a torpedo frigate. Thors are countered by a torpedo frigate. A Punisher is kind of in the same situation, same boat as a Thor, and it's worth the shot considering the value of a Punisher versus the 150 gas for the attack. The other units, just because they're so much lower in value and they're more likely to move, are usually not threatened by a torpedo frigate. Just not. Any smart player isn't going to waste their resources on a very slim chance they might get something like that, unless they've got a crap ton of resources to waste. Air units, small air units, are not really threatened by it for the same reason. They can dodge the missiles very, very easily. And air units also, kind of like infantry, they don't really affect the torpedo frigate much. Sure, if they spot it, they could, you know, with lots of missile attacks, do damage to it. But for the most part, like infantry, they don't affect it, and it doesn't affect them. Now the Viking, on the other hand, is a difference because it does have his anti-capital torpedo. Vikings would counter a torpedo frigate pretty hard as long as you keep detection, as long as you can keep them visible. A torpedo frigate, I'm sorry, a Viking would do well. A Valkyrie, again, I gotta nerf it's not meant to take out armored targets, and he does have 4 armor, so there is that. These two, I guess, if you wanted to, I mean, if you wanted to, you could drop a strategic nuke on him, because it is a strategic nuke costs 1,000 gas, and a torpedo frigate costs 1,500 gas, 2,000 mineral. So you are getting a 500 gas, 2,000 mineral gain. So you could use a Griffin if you wanted to just fly by and drop a strategic nuke where you know where it is, and then just keep on going and let him get melted. So that actually is a possibility. All the capital ships, it counters. So that's Terran versus Terran. Terran versus Zerg for torpedo frigate. I was in a free-for-all one time with Supremo, and he made a Leviathan. Oh yeah, I do need to mention, I had a battle cruiser. I had good map control. It was on Forsaken Ruins. I had good map control. I had a battle cruiser. I had a Canon Tower up on the hill looking over my whole area. I had a science vessel. I mean, I was set up. I had a strategic nuclear missile silo with a big nuke ready to go. I had any kind of artillery I needed, and a third of the map. I mean, I really felt like that map was in the bag. What I didn't expect to happen was the AI, the Zerg. So the Zerg AI was left on the right side, and Supremo was left on south. And the pathing on that map is actually pretty complicated, and sometimes the AI can lag the map out. And in this case, it did. And this lag was like the worst lag I've ever seen. I mean, it was like 0.1 frames per second. It literally took like 5 seconds of actual time for like maybe a second of game time to pass. It was agony. Total, just agony. And I knew it was the AI, and I knew it was a traffic jam. So if it wasn't for that traffic jam, what I intended on doing, since Supremo is known for not making very many defenses, he only had like one seeker nest in his main. So I planned on Yamotoing the seeker nest and then nuking his main. And then I also had a bunch of tanks too. I had like 8 battle tanks and some diamondbacks. I mean, I was ready to go. So I was gonna wipe Supremo off the map since he was more of a threat to me than the AI was. And like I said, I was gonna take out his anti-nuke. I was gonna nuke his main, and then I was gonna send the tanks in with battlecruiser overhead. That was the plan. Okay. Here's what ended up happening. Sadly, the AI screwed me over by lagging the game so bad to the point where it was almost unplayable. Well, it was unplayable, and so I told him, and it took like 15 minutes just to get my battlecruiser to move just this short little distance to see where the cluster of Zerg AI units were. So I used attack nuke on them. It was a regular battlecruiser, it wasn't a Hyperion. I used attack nuke on the cluster on the traffic jam. But my battlecruiser was well outside of my base. It was up over by the Zerg AI, kind of like up over where my mouse area is. My base area was up in this corner of the map. Supremo was down here, and the AI was basically this side on Forsaken Ruins. So I have that hill. If you know the map, you know what I'm talking about. And I also had the middle for quite a while too. Eventually the AI got it, but so I took my battlecruiser out kind of around here. Okay, he was way outside of the base, and he was by himself, and that's my fault. But I did not. So anyway, he was out here, and he was using tac nukes to kill these clusters of Zerg AI that were just causing the whole game to come to a standstill. And so I was like, good. So I accomplished my mission, and as I start to turn the battlecruiser around to go back home, he says, you should take screenshot for animated GIF. And I'm like, what? He's like, animated GIF. I was like, I don't know what the heck he's talking about. And right, like 2 seconds after I was thinking, I don't know what the heck he's talking about, I see like 50 Scourge of his Scourge coming right at me. And I hit defense matrix, shields went up, but I knew it's going to die. There were so many Scourge, I was like, it's going to die. And it died. So there goes my battlecruiser, okay? So one thing after another. He has a Leviathan now, and I don't have a battlecruiser anymore, and he goes straight for me. Alright? When this is happening, I did lose that game, and it was so very, very sad. I did kill his Leviathan before I lost, and how did I do it? I did it with a Torpedo Frigate. I did not have many resources left by this point. I saw that he had a Leviathan. I saw he was coming straight for me, so I had a starport on some back random hidden area, and I thought, this is my only hope. I'm going to make a Torpedo Frigate because I know it is just so good against capital units, and I'm going to wait for it. And I mean, most of my bases were gone by the time I had it, but I had it, and I killed his Leviathan with my Torpedo Frigate. So it does very good at killing motherships, at killing Leviathans, battlecruisers. The Torpedo Frigate is a fraction of the cost of a battlecruiser, but it will kill a battlecruiser. So there is that. It's a very useful unit, let me put it that way. Yep, story time is now over. So yeah, it does well. A Torpedo Frigate does well against the Leviathan. As for units, it can kill an Ultralisk in one volley. Let's see, what else do we have here? A Broodlord, it's not effective against because the Broodlord just has to move a little bit. If the Broodlord is sitting perfectly still and does not move, yes, the Torpedo Frigate will kill it in one volley. That doesn't happen often. So you'd have to do a lot of gambling. Throw a lot of 150 gas dice to try to kill that Broodlord. So there's that. It's also good because Broodlords max out around 2,000 hit points for their veterancy. So if he's kind of like a 15 hit point, if he's kind of been advancing his Broodlord, the Torpedo Frigate will still kill that if it does catch it, but like I said, it's not fully practical. Spindel, it'll one-shot a Spindel, it'll one-shot everything that's Zerg, basically. It will take a hive down to half health, it will take out a lair in one hit, it'll take out a hatchery in one hit. So you would need anti-missiles if you're Zerg, if you're dealing with a Torpedo Frigate. One swarm colony, let me make one here if people haven't tuned in. Let's see here. If they just tuned in recently and they've never seen one of these yet. The way the Spore Colony Swarm Colony works is it creates. I know the rain is kind of making it a little harder to see. You see all these little green things? And you know what? I just realized the compression on YouTube is so bad, you might not be able to see the little green dots I'm talking about. Let me zoom in so maybe they're bigger. See these little green dots flying around? Okay. These things within this circle will kill incoming missiles. So if you have one of these, it's all you need to keep out torpedoes. It'll blow all the torpedoes up. So this is your defense against the Torpedo Frigate. Scourge, if you can find it, find Torpedo Frigate and hit it with Scourge. Simple as that. Corruptors would also do well since the Torpedo Frigate can't kill the Corruptors practically. Heck, you could even use damage upgraded Mutalisks. The Torpedo Frigate is vulnerable like that. So that's that. As for Protoss, he's just chilling over here. As for Protoss, all of these ground units, again, infantry don't really affect it. Dragoons, if you can see it, Dragoons and Immortals will do well against it. The Torpedo Frigate counters a Colossus. That shouldn't be a surprise since it's a big, always visible unit. It's like a capital ship. And it also has, it actually should one-shot, no, it'll leave the Colossus very critical health if all the torpedoes hit. If I remember right, because of its shields and all that. So it'll critically wound a Colossus with one volley, and then the second one will finish it. So it does well against Colossus. Torpedo Frigate would get annihilated by Phoenix or Scouts. It could one-shot a Tempest if the Tempest stands still. It'll counter a Warbird, obviously. Any capital ship, really. Any of these capital ships. Now, except the Arbiter, again, because of that slowness field. Slowness field just makes the Arbiter just immune to missiles, basically. If it's a missile attacking unit, the Arbiter is not afraid of it, because he can just dodge them. Like Neo in the Matrix, it's just going to dodge around these little slow bullets. You can use a Torpedo Frigate to hunt a carrier. And yeah, this is kind of like naval warfare. So let's say he makes a carrier or a super carrier, and he's got his carrier somewhere back at base or something like that. And let's say he's lazy and he's not really too worried about, he's got like one prism cannon or something, he doesn't have a whole lot nearby. He's focusing on what his interceptors are doing, he's not focusing on his carrier. Let me give you the stats on a carrier so you can see for yourself. The Torpedo Frigate does 2,000 damage per volley. I believe it one-shots a carrier. I believe. I have to look at the stats again, make sure the stats haven't changed. I think they have increased, actually. Yeah, they did. They increased. So basically, the first torpedo will leave the carrier at 500 health. It'll be critical. The first torpedo attack. The second one would finish it. So a carrier just at home, just chilling, is very vulnerable to a Torpedo Frigate who can cloak. He can cloak, and he can get, I mean, if he wanted to, he could get point blank. Not advisable. Do damage to himself. But, I mean, he can get really close. If he's got, like, a bunch of anti-missile stuff he doesn't want to even fool with, he can get really close. Oh, target is too close. There we go. Yeah, he is really close there. He's just going to do that. All those torpedoes at this thing. And they're not hitting. I love these videos. Is it because it's the map edge? I think it's because I'm on the edge of the map. That's just great. You know, I try. I really do. I try. I'm not even going to try to heal in there. Just, how about let's go away from the map edge. Well, that's a new thing I learned right now on this video too. If you're on the map edge and you have like a missile salvo, those missiles don't know what to do when they hit the map edge, so they bounce in some random direction. That's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. You better hit. What in the heck? This carrier and these torpedoes. Alright, I'm going to write it down on my notepad that these torpedoes are doing weird turning behavior. So the carrier, I'm going to fix that. Yes, that's about how much health he should have had left after the first torpedo attack. And I'm going to make sure that happens after the next patch. Let's see here. My dog is getting very anxious. He's like, this guy talks too much. Carriers, anti-carrier, yes. And so on. Also, its armor is 4, so the interceptors are only going to be doing 1 damage. That sound you're hearing is him pawing at the carpet. And he's now laying near my feet, making his presence known, reminding me that he exists, and he matters, and he probably has to pee, and he wants more food because he wants to be a fat doggy. That is his goal in life. He wants to be as fat as he can get. And it's my job to make sure that doesn't happen. Okay. That wraps it up, I think, with the Torpedo Frigate. Oh, I forgot to mention the Monolith. Yes. The Monolith will definitely keep a Liberator out, and it will definitely... a Monolith does 750 damage per shot, and I believe it is 1,000 for large. Let me do a test shot here. I'm going to do a test shot. Now, there's an interesting relationship between the Monolith and the Torpedo Frigate, because they kind of counter each other. Because the Torpedo Frigate does 2,000 damage per attack, which can take out a Monolith in a single volley. Assuming there are no prisma cannons around it, and assuming that the missiles will not do that stupid thing you just saw earlier with the carrier. But the beam here, yeah, 1,000 versus massive, see that? And it's a massive unit. And so it'll be left with 250 hit points, and he'll be left with nothing. But keep in mind, the cost of a Monolith, 2,000 mineral, 500 gas, and the cost of a Torpedo Frigate is 2,000 mineral, 1,500 gas. So it's left with 200. It's about an even kind of relationship. But I would put money on the Monolith because it's instant hit, and there's no guarantee that you can get the missiles through for a Torpedo Frigate. But it is a threat to a Monolith. If he's out there lurking, and you just got your base here with one prisma cannon, he maybe have thought, hey, you know what? If I get him here and shoot from here to there, there's no prisma cannons between them there and there, and he's dead, one shot. The downside for this guy is he's so big that you cannot miss that blur, you know? So he can have an observer on that fast the moment he sees the blur. You get rained down, bud. So that is a Torpedo Frigate. I did want to mention it versus the Monolith. Next, Terran capital ship, the Destroyer. Have you been healed yet? No, we'll just heal you, I suppose. It's faster. So the Destroyer is symbolic of kind of like a destroyer support in the real world, you know, nearby artillery shells. A Destroyer is a guns-based capital ship, not missiles, guns. He has cannons, you know, air-to-ground cannons, and he has air-to-air, this little minigun thing that he has that just pops air units from far away. He has guns. That's what the Destroyer does. He has the barrage ability, which is the same as the Thor. In fact, let me get some units out here to be a demonstration. I'm going to want what is the... I can't remember the code here for... You know, I'll do Protoss units. It's probably better. What is the dang code for or am I just not in... No, I'm in Reyes. See? Okay. Well, I knew somebody would mess up my fun here. And you hold fire, because he's going to want to fire his torpedoes too. I got all these capital ships on the map, and I keep forgetting. Oh yeah, the bomber is such... It's brand new, and it's very, very overpowered. I'm going to have to fix that. 1C RAG. Nope. 1 C for computer. GOON. Nope. 1 C. Well, what would I make it? Did I forget to tie in the Dragoon? Oh, for heaven's sake. This is all zealots. I'm just going to do all zealots for heaven's sake. This is all 50 CZAL. We got 50 zealots right here. And the destroyer has a barrage radius more than that. So we can probably kill 100 zealots like this. So are you facing? Are you facing? Let's get them in the picture so at least it looks a little cooler, I guess. And he's going to turn, and he's going to... Perfect. He literally was doing everything around. It does random impacts in this large of an area. It can sometimes do, and it does each one of those hits is like more than 100 damage. So I mean, it can do a pretty good amount. It's just a nice little ability that it has. It can do every minute. It can barrage an area. But other than that, it has 8 cannons that do 100 damage each every 10 seconds, which means it's a lot of cannon power on the ground. Most units have a hard time against it, like just gun units. Dragoons, I mean, it one-shots. I'm sorry, it takes 2 shots per Dragoon. But I mean, it kills 4 Dragoons in its first volley, just its normal attack. So the destroyer is a really good air-to-ground unit. Its air-to-air ability is limited because it has to face its target to shoot those guns. It was given recently one little auto gun here. Oh, that was my voice cracking. Puberty it just sucks, doesn't it? One little auto gun, and why? Because sometimes you just need one machine gun to shoot at something. There we go. Did it do it? That's a cannon. Anyway, I began to realize that at a certain point that cannons only is kind of stupid when all you need to do is kill like one Zergling. And you just wasted on a cannon is wasted. So a deck gun of some kind. It does have a machine gun attack that was recently added. It just makes it a little bit more, a little less helpless. Also, it doesn't use that much ammo. So even if you're out of ammo for your cannon, in fact, I don't think it uses any ammo or something. So if you're out of ammo, you can at least have a machine gun. This giant ship with a machine gun, so it's not totally helpless. So yeah, let's look at all the units now and compare them. Yep, the destroyer runs over all of these units. Roach, Brutalisk. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna have to pause the video here, I think. Hold on one second here. And you know what? It's an hour and a half. I'm gonna pause it here. We're gonna come back to this in the next video for the destroyer. How about that?